is Ashley Keeshan, one of the newest grads in our program. So, or you're getting darn close at any rate. And so we're here to talk a little bit about what brought Ashley from a job as a physical therapy uh, at an boy, I can't get the words out, electronic medical records. Oh boy, electronic medical records trainer to owning a, a the Bark and Bunk in Marietta, Georgia. So Ashley, welcome, and I'll try not to stumble too much more today. Um, I mean, that's really amazing. We were chatting a little bit that you were getting frustrated with your previous work, where they were like you were seeing lots of things that the business could do to make things better for physical therapists, and they're like, it's okay, we're doing good. And I think so. It sounds like you had already started like the Bark and Bunk at a part-time level. So what was up with all of that? How'd you transition full time into pet care?
So it kind of goes back to 2019. I had just moved back to Georgia, end of 2018. And so in 2019, I was, trying to find my niche, trying to find something, because I worked from home and I'm naturally a homebody. So I was like, okay, Ash, you got to get out there. You got to find something. And two of my male dogs were rescued via foster. So their rescue organizations worked purely on fosters only. They didn't have a physical location where volunteers could go in and out and take care of them. So in the back of my mind, I was always like wanting to do something like that, like to pay it forward for those that, saved my dogs, and I have them. And so I found the leader of my Bible study at the time. She had just helped with an adoption with one of my best friends, her brother. And I was like, oh, where's this at? And she told me. And so went to their website, Mostly Mutts Animal Rescue, and got involved with fostering first before the volunteering at the actual rescue. My first foster that I ended up having her for 6 months. She got adopted by the most incredible person, and now she bunks at Bark and Bunk, so I still see her all the time.
Awesome.
And then that led into, I fostered a mom and puppies, led into litter after litter after litter, helping them give birth, raise the puppies, and, send them off to great homes. And so I was really finding my passion, really finding my purpose. And then I started like watching friends' dogs when they went out of town, because a lot of them at the time like got along well with my pack. And so then I was like, there could be something to this. So it started to pick up end of 2019, and I was starting to get booked for the next year for holidays and vacations. I was like, guess I'm doing this. So I was like, might as well make it official, make the parents feel at peace, and that, I'm doing it the right way, because I would want the same thing. And so I incorporated Bark and Bunk in January of 2022 while still having the other job. So I was working like 60 plus hours from home on that job. And then in a break that I had, then of course, outside of work, taking care of pups. And I didn't expect to quit my day job so soon, but like you mentioned earlier, it just like I was fighting an uphill battle, and just realized Bark and Bunk has grown organically through word of mouth and has become so successful. And that's where my true heart is at anyways. And so I was like, well, this really is a no-brainer. So I was able to quit my day job September of last year. So I've been 1 year as a solo boss, and I'll hit 2 years with Bark and Bunk in January.
That is fantastic. I love these stories of like, this corporate life isn't doing it for me. And and just knowing that business could do better, but it chooses not to. So right on to you for choosing to choosing yourself and choosing
Yeah.
the mission that really drives your heart and your soul.
Mhm.
So congrats. So I wanted to drop Ashley's Facebook page in, so check that out there. But I mean, you've seen a lot of stuff going on with during your foster work, and so and you mentioned earlier you had the litter of puppies and a mom. So how is that trying to get these puppies, weaned off and on a good diet and all of that good stuff?
So, they have to, ideally, the mama produces milk, has milk production. On some occasions, they can't or don't, and then, you go to plan B. But the colostrum is super important during the first 48 hours for them to get those nutrients. And so then they continue nursing. We wean them off between like 5 and 6 weeks, around there, because at 8 weeks, they can technically, if they're over 2 pounds, get spayed or neutered, and then be adopted. We don't want to adopt out dogs that aren't fixed, because then we're just like making the cycle of life. So that's tough. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, it's, transitioning them to kibble, soften it, dry kibble, food that's, supported and donated, to the rescue and stuff like that too. So high calorie puppy food to help with development and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing. I mean, because you're working with the rescue group, you basically got to play with the rules that they establish. And I get it. I mean, in 1990, in Charleston, South Carolina, the SPCA took in 45,000 animals a year and euthanized 35,000 of them. And it was a deal where they'd leave the shelter with a voucher to go to the vet to get the dog or cat spayed or neutered, and that wasn't happening. So that's part of why the rescue groups do this, because it actually did bring the overpopulation problem way under control. So it's made, there's a lot of research showing that maybe it's not the best for the pet, but on the other hand, the senseless euthanasias have really dropped dramatically, that's what we're all after, is quality of life and good lives for these guys. So
Correct.
right on. So, it's a tough one, but it is what it is. And, I think there's one of the other coaches in the program who's graduated too, Christy Green, does a breeding program for essentially emotional support dogs within the school district. And so she has more levity in terms of what her program will be. But that was one of the things she said, is that when she started using Crock Pet, the last 2 litters, it was like night and day in terms of their health. Yeah, it was just crazy. And you've had some success with your own dogs, just starting to implement the things you've learned in terms of food and supplements. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my 4 dogs have been on the Crock Pet diet now for almost 2 months. And for those that are listening and have no idea what that is, it's essentially just being able to control what my dogs eat. So by cooking in a less energetic way in a crock pot, oven roaster, Instapot, food for the week, or however long, how many batches you want to cook for, but it's home cooked. It's not raw. It's easier for them to digest. And as I've been learning through the traditional Chinese veterinary medicine courses that Dr. Ruth has given us, all super interesting. And choosing the correct proteins, right? Choosing cooling proteins versus warming proteins, essentially veggies to detox the liver, to increase digestion, is all about what the home cooked meal is, the Crock Pet diet. And, at first it took me a minute to start cooking for them because it seemed overwhelming. I have 4 dogs. It seemed daunting. And I was just like, oh gosh, I don't know, and then I have a mentor with the program, and he was there for me with every question that I had. And so I was like, okay, I'll just do it. I'll just start. And it's been great. They love it. Murphy, my oldest, he's 8, about to turn 9. He's always been super picky with food. will sometimes just lay down and watch his food.
Poor buddy.
Some days like he just wouldn't eat. So I'd put like canned food for him to like entice him, him training me. And so he is the first one done eating now. He goes over to lick the other dog's bowls, and it's just like his coat's getting better. He's had chronic itchy ears, and he's had ear issues for a long time. But most recently this year, just starting to itch. He would wake me up in the mornings, just itching his ears. But through a supplement, through Dr. Ruth, with quercetin, and I can't remember what else is in it. Histopause is the name. But
right, stinging nettles and quercetin. It's super easy.
Yeah. And but through giving him that at a slightly higher dosage, he maybe scratches his ears once a day, and maybe sometimes none. Awesome. And he is someone that like I can't get close to his ears with any sort of drop, any sort of wet wipe, any sort of like he sees me come in and he's very much ready to like, back away. So yeah. So I was like, I have all the ear options, but like it's just not for him and it's just stressful for him. So I was like, well, let me give Histopause a shot. And it's Histopause, PAWS. And it's incredible.
That's awesome.
So
that's great. And that's fun that you're having success really with pretty easy changes, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, changing diet. And it is. So, I mean, now that you're actually cooking for all 4 dogs, how much effort is it?
So I wasn't a big cook before. So it's like, I'm like learning all of the tips and tricks on it. I mean, I like sauteed and I like baked, but I've never used a crock pot or like Instapot or anything like that. So, but once I cut up the ingredients and put it in there, I was like, oh, and then it just cooks. And then you let it cool and then you blend it with a hand blender, or I was using my Vitamix. Well, before that, put in the put in the oil, but, and then it's good to go. And, put it, if you have extra, freeze it. I've never had extra. But it's not as challenging as I thought it would be. And I have 4 dogs. So.
Right on. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, we had, before we left Charleston, a couple of years before we left, we had 5 dogs and 5 cats, and we could knock out food for the month in about 4 hours once a month. So it was just, it's just getting the rhythm down. It's not as terrible as it seems. So cool. Well, let's do this. Let's jump over to the Facebook page and check this out. So here is your amazing page, and I mean, you've got some tigers and cutie. So that's awesome. So you're just kind of talking about the dogs, the cats, dogs mostly, and then what they're like, all of that good stuff. That's really adorable. So
I
cutie pie.
Whenever I had to board my dogs, they would always have this like pet of the day. Of course, my dogs were never pet of the day. And I was like, but I wanted to see them. Like, I didn't get any contact on how they were doing. And I was like, I hope they're doing well. And then they would come home, smell like urine, all strung out, like just super anxious. And so that also has really like, I'm running my business how I would, in complete opposite of all of that. So like I post every single dog that comes in. I, want their owners to see them, being highlighted, being in the spotlight, but I also update the owners personally daily or every other few days on their dogs, behavior, on their, if there's any gut issues because of the stress or anything like that. And then we adjust as needed. But communication with me is super important, and it's worked out, and people love seeing their dogs. I mean, who wouldn't?
Right
Yeah.
on. Cool. And that's it. I mean, basically, you're running this business the way you wanted to have received that you wanted for care for your pets. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah.
Right
So
on.
like
And
Sunday
that's it.
pickups, like 8 a.m. drop off to 8 p.m. Exceptions if flights are canceled or whatever, because that's definitely happening these days. Things you can't control. So
Yeah.
I am a human, and I am small. So not me, but my business is small, and so I can make those adjustments. I can be flexible like that, because at the end of the day, it's all about the dog and their owner. And so whatever I can do to best suit that dog is what I'm going to do.
Right on. Right on. Well, we're going to jump over to the Holistic Pet Health Group, and we've got a few questions here. So Christina is asking about Pax Lovejoy. I love that piece, Lovejoy. And she's concerned about giving him Heartguard and NexGard every month. So I get it. And Maggie jumped in to kind of help point her in the right direction. But it's tough because, especially for in the Southeast where heartworm is just so prevalent, we got to take some concern. So have you got a couple of suggestions we could offer Christina? And I'll follow up with a couple too.
In terms of like heartworm prevention.
Yeah, and flea control. Yeah, and you may or
Flea
may not have
control.
gotten this far yet.
So flea control, yes, there are other natural alternatives to. Now, sometimes, like if you're going on a week-long hike and you're going to be in the mountains, there are use cases for a stronger, like a Seresto or whatever. But if it's like a daily thing that you're giving your dog, is it the Alto collar?
Right. There's the amber collar. There's zero
Amber
bug zone. Yeah, yeah.
And there's like more
Yeah.
there's natural alternatives, essential oils, which I haven't learned about yet, but definitely natural alternatives that don't cause. Murphy, my oldest, used to have seizures, and so I was very aware with flea and tick meds.
Right.
I don't think I really gave them to them because of the side effects. So
Right.
I was just very cautious with that.
Right. And that's one of the primary things we get worried about with NexGard, because it actually has been black boxed by the FDA because it has been associated with increased seizures and neurologic problems. So, Christina, there's a couple of other things you can do. Heartguard, even the American Heartworm Society now is saying every 45 to 60 days is probably adequate for the tablets. I would choose something with the least amount of ingredients in it. And then NexGard, I would avoid any kind of oral flea and tick stuff at all costs, because these are the ones that create the most issues. So like Ashley said, a Seresto collar if you're going somewhere where the ticks and fleas are really hiss. But then other things like amber collar, Baltic amber collar, zero bug zone, essential oil sprays, Wondercide. There's so many other options. And he's got if he's a medical service dog, he's got a very busy life, and we want to reduce as much stress on his body as is possible. Cool. Let's see. Andrea is asking about Lucy, who has elevated liver enzymes, arthritis, and maybe has Cushing's. So Truprofen is probably a generic version of Carprofen. So the interesting thing about CBD and liver enzymes is the study that everybody references saying it will crank up the liver enzymes was based on one dog that was taking an exceptionally high dose of CBD. So I think it would be reasonable to try it, but I would start at a low dose, literally at 1 milligram twice a day, and then gradually titrate up. And then definitely you're going to want to work on supporting liver function. And so, what Ashley was talking about earlier with the Crock Pet diet, that's going to help improve both gut health and liver function. And then there's a couple of other things you could do. So, Ashley, have you got some thoughts on what else we could do to help Lucy out?
Yeah, this is actually like a godsend. My parents' pup actually passed away due to Cushing's disease earlier this year, and and she was misdiagnosed, as I'm learning through the course, several times, and all the symptoms I'm learning about. I definitely supporting the liver, definitely getting on the correct diet to decrease inflammation, because it's a lot of times what is causing some of these symptoms, and enzyme numbers to fluctuate. There are supplementation to support the liver, increased vegetables, brassica veggies, and then also adrenals, the different hormone glands too. If in fact it is Cushing's, I may not know yet, but yeah, it's a nasty, disease, and then that can be prevented if you have the knowledge and resources. So, it's near and dear to my heart. So, yeah.
I hear you. Yeah, and if you've had that experience, that's really tough. So, one of the things that you could do, there's a liver support protocol on our webpage, but I think you've got enough complex issues going on that this is really where using a holistic pet health coach can be super beneficial, because their job is literally to help you understand what is going on, help you figure out, what you need to do to support your dog better, and to work with your veterinarian and start to get some of these issues under control. So I put in here the link to our consulting page. You can certainly reach out to Ashley, on the Facebook page, connect with her. She can help you get started. One of the benefits of this program is that every week we have coaching calls. So if there are things that come up that, the coaches are not sure how to handle, then they're able to talk with me, and I can help them walk through the case and get a little bit better plan put together. But this is what this is all about, is helping you figure out where to even start with things. I mean, poor Lucy's got so many things going on. So, we need to help support her liver, help support her arthritis pain, get her on a diet that's really going to optimize her quality of life, because she is adorable and we want her to live a long time. Yuck. And then this is the fun thing about being in veterinary medicine world is poop pictures. So anonymous person, that's pretty icky. If it's a one-off situation, I'm just going to go down to this cute dog that's much more fun to look at. But if that's a one-off situation, just really withdraw food for 12, 24 hours, let things settle down, make sure your pup's drinking plenty of water. If it's not, and that's been happening frequently, that's really where you need to get some help from a vet. But if this is something that's going on chronically, you want to make sure that you're working with somebody that can help you heal that dog's gut. And boy, Lisa, 9-year-old blue heeler with the first episode of pancreatitis. Oh, IV flu. Oh, the whole nine. Okay. Chicken, rice, sweet potato, and green beans. Yep, vitamins, minerals, etc., to make it a balanced meal. So that's really what the Crock Pet diet is all about. So what do you think? What would you suggest for Lisa to start working on in terms of food, Ashley?
Yeah, so definitely home cooking her meal to help calm down her gut, changing up the proteins, because if you eat the same thing every single day, your body develops antigens to them and starts attacking them, when really you might be okay with them. So changing the proteins, changing the different veggies. Kibble has been known to be, or is, super processed, and it's really hard on their gut. And by cooking their food, you can decrease the inflammation, start to heal the gut. I put water in all of my dogs' meals, even though I do cook, just to increase that water intake. And I don't know where you are, where that healer is, but if it's really hot, then that's where the TCVM comes in, the Chinese medicine of maybe chicken isn't ideal for her. We also offer food sensitivity tests, chemical and environmental, to kind of more so pinpoint, use as a roadmap to determine what her sensitivities are. And then that helps guide us to know like what to avoid in the right here, right now.
Right on.
So that's where I start, and then possibly, you mentioned balancing. Yes, we do have a multivitamin. It does have beef and pork. So that's why the food sensitivity test is also super important, because if she has a sensitivity to those, we'll find other options. We don't want to start with that. And then just really supporting the pancreas with different supplementation, but starting slow, as her gut needs to heal.
Right on. And the other thing to remember too is that I think, so I've been in practice long enough, 30 some odd years. I think that things we used to just call gastroenteritis are all getting called pancreatitis. And so then it's like, oh, you have to always feed this low fat diet. Well, the deal is that you do need to feed a lower fat diet. And so it's just kind of a matter of feeling your way up to what level of fat's good for that individual person or pet. And that's where we do recommend avoiding coconut oil, because it has been associated with increased episodes of pancreatitis. And you got some info from Paris and from Maggie, so that's awesome. And so Daniela and Charlie, you do have a bunch of stuff. And it looks like Charlie just got back from the vet too. So here's the difficulty. So low carb diets, so you've got 3 macronutrients, right? Protein, fat, and carbohydrate. So if it's low carb, it's going to be high fat, which is not going to work well for chronic pancreatitis. The kidney disease with a lower protein diet, maybe, maybe not. And again, you've got a lot of stuff going on with Charlie, Daniela. So I think this is where working with one of the coaches will be super helpful. But there's actually another approach to cancer called a methionine restricted diet. And that seems to be as powerful in many cases, more powerful than a keto or low carb diet. And you can absolutely give Crock Pet multivitamin. I would absolutely give adrenal gland to support pets with Cushing's, because again, the concept there is like feeds like. If we give it the nutrients it needs to heal itself, then we're going to only help things out. Anything you would add for Daniela?
No, yeah, I think, looking first at the diet, and then going from there, and depending on, the different, the adrenals, yeah, for Cushing's, sounds just like a lot of inflammation happening.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, and there you go. And so Maggie popped this in too. CBD oil can definitely help bring all of those things under control. So it's a great option there. So yeah, Tiffany, you're planning ahead. Good for you. So what do you have in your first aid kit?
So
for emergencies.
Gosh, for emergencies. Well, I've been using Remedy, which is a full spectrum CBD salve. Murphy has a cyst on his rear back, and it started to decrease. Like, it went through the whole healing phase of like the bloody kind of stuff, but then of the killing of the bad cells, and then now it's decreasing, becoming his normal skin color. So that's something for like skin tags, any lumps, any cysts. Soothe is another great balm that I have too, which is more for like hot spots or allergies or any other kind of cut or anything that you have or that your dog gets.
Yeah.
Um,
Man,
I
I gotta
haven't
tell
gotten
you,
into like, do I?
the suit. I fell off my bike and skinned the heck out of my knee, and I'm astonished how fast it is healing with the soothe. So that is
Oh,
an
I'm using
awesome
myself
product.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
all of the products are human grade that I have. So like I'm often using the same products as them, which is really weird, but really cool that it works for both of us. So
Right on. So, another thing that would be great to have on hand is activated charcoal. So if your pup's eaten something funky, that'll help suck up some of the evil spirits in the gut, like the enterotoxins. Um, I think having liquid CBD on hand for anxiety episodes or worried about traveling, and especially, we were talking about this a while ago too. I mean, with all the storms and stuff out there in the southeast and the Gulf Coast, having a bug out bag, so to speak, is really important. And so those are the things that you would absolutely need to have on hand to take with you. So those are all important things. Some Benadryl is a great idea, which isn't truly natural, but it is it's a great solution if your pet has sudden sensitivities. Bee stings, quercetin, and nettles is another amazing one. The histopause that helps get the itch under control really quickly. Probiotics to help with the gut. I mean, there's a huge list. Did I miss anything?
no, yeah, and I'm still definitely developing my my go-tos as I'm learning more. So that's great, Tiffany, that you're even asking now, because there's a lot out there that we don't know about, and so you come to the right place
Right on.
to find out.
Cool. Well, and that's the thing too, is on the website, there's a PDF that I put together a couple of years ago called When Not to Go to the ER Vet. So if you head over there, join our free community, you will be able to get that download really quick. And if you're having trouble find it, you can always email Erica or Immaculate at Dr. Ruth Roberts at drruthroberts.com, and they can direct you to some of those resources. And then, man, Shih Tzu, Bichon, rusty brown fur on the front paws and mouth. And she's 4 years old and spayed. So what do you think about this?
Oh, the coloring
Ashley?
of
Yeah.
I actually am not quite sure.
It's a really interesting thing, and we see it more on the white and light colored dogs, but the staining is from porphyrin, which is a breakdown product from hemoglobin, but that can mean that there's some allergy starting to develop, and especially if the change is around her mouth and then licking on her front paws. So again, this is where there's no major health issues going on at this point, but this is where you want to really start working on gut health. So if you're feeding conventional dry food, this is where you want to start looking for whole food options. And that's where the Crock Pet diet is just so helpful, because you can make that fit whatever you need to fit.
And that's very common. A lot of my clients, the kind of dogs like that, they all have the discoloration.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Are the majority of them eating the just regular conventional?
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. So Crystal's wanting to know about preservatives and other additives to dog vaccines. So what you would want to do. So for instance, what I can tell you is that MRAB by Marietta or Merck, whoever they are now, is thiomersal free, which is the mercury component. So vaccines all have adjuvants, which are things that are designed to stimulate the immune system to respond more effectively to the vaccine. So that's a place. What you would need to do is find out what your veterinarian is using and then investigate the brands, and they should be able to tell you the various additives. The other thing is too, Crystal, is that um, you probably want to talk with your vet about the vaccine schedule. So again, that's a download we offer on the site, but I mean, there's still a lot of veterinarians out there that are saying, "Oh, you need to vaccinate every year." So, but we know that we can use things like titers or blood samples to test if the dog is or the cat is still producing enough antibodies to whatever the disease is we're trying to protect. So,
Yeah.
any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I actually just asked my vet last time I took one of my dogs in, and he seemed caught off guard. He was like, "Oh, well, we
What?
do that." um, but yeah, and then like getting them, like Dr. Bruce said, on the schedule, like if they do a 3-year rabies, definitely choose that option. Whatever, however far out you can go, essentially. If your dog doesn't have to be boarded or anything like that, there are some vaccines you probably don't need for your dog. So it kind of just depends on where you live and, who your dog and what your dog is around as well.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing, is just assessing exposure risk instead of just vaccinating every dog for everything. So just, get start gathering some information about what's really needed in your area. You can do, Google for incidence charts of leptospirosis, for instance. That's a vaccine I stopped using in 1994. So that tells you kind of how much I think about it. So let's see. And Linda's got a 15-year-old dog that started pacing and hassling. You're from the South, I can tell. So
Yeah.
kind of passing and panting and drooling and goes around in circles. Um, have you had any of your border bunkers go through this kind of stuff, Ashley? Or
I do have those that have issues settling and just constant panting. As I've learned, that's definitely something in the gut, whether that's the liver, whether that's the spleen, anxiety, some sort of stress possibly might going on, or they're just overheated from the inside out and need to be cooled down in some way. Get comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it sounds like there could be a couple of things going on. And I get it, Linda. At this point, your main goal is to make your pup as comfortable and happy as possible. So there's several options. CBD is one, because there's probably canine cognitive dysfunction going on that will help relieve some of the anxiety. The other thing that I've had great success with personally is clarity, and I don't have a link for this one, but it is a mushroom tincture made by my dear friend Angela Ardolino over at CBD Dog Health. And it is a combination of lion's mane and a couple of other things, but it's fantastic because it helps the brain to function more normally. And lion's mane is really interesting for people. It's been shown to actually improve gray matter, so get the brain function back online. But I would start with that. I think underlying everything is GI issues, so food sensitivities. And again, this is where working with a pet health coach is going to help get you through some of this.
Yeah, I give clarity to my dogs every day.
All right.
Just started probably 3 to 4 weeks ago. So I'm excited to see, various results.
Right on. And Christy, it just depends on what is going on. So I think you're dealing with and I think we talked about this. So Christy's in the program too. She's got a dog that's got microvascular dysplasia, probably. And so this is where it gets really confusing. So I would say that I would go with a lower protein diet because this is a severe liver dysfunction diet or problem. And so go with a lower protein. You can go with moderate fat, moderate carbs, and then start to get resolution of symptoms, and then gradually start to adjust the diet based on what you're seeing. So it's one of those deals. It is so, so confusing. So I hope that is helpful. There you go. So are you a big? I think your foray into cooking has been with Crock diet for the most part, right, Ashley?
Yeah, I do have pumpkin on hand though, because it does help with diarrhea or constipation. I actually,
Right.
for a lot of my clients, if their dog is experiencing diarrhea or upset stomach, I do, ask, say, hey, like I have some, would you want to? And it clears it up pretty quickly. I've never
Yeah.
made my own, so I'm interested to hear too.
Yeah. So and Rena's got a great idea. You just whack them in half, scoop just like any other squash. And actually, I would cut them into smaller pieces and bake them. You can boil them, which probably keeps more of the moisture in, and then just scoop out the puree. And Teresa's, steam them or put them in a slow cooker, which is awesome. And then you just mash it and freeze it. So that's an awesome idea.
I'll have to look back at that for the comments.
Okay, right on. This group is getting to be a lot of fun. We're up to 1,500 folks, which is wonderful. And ear growth. So there you go. Maggie's kicking up with some remedy there. That's been super awesome. And I think that's a group to start.
I agree.
And yeah, we got a bunch of new folks. Little info on turmeric. And lots and lots of folks. And then we had a really fun conversation with Amy Renz with Gracious Goodness Pet Food. She does a lightly cooked whole food diet, which definitely more on the in agreement with her on that one. That was really refreshing. And I think this gets us down through the questions, which is awesome. Nice. Cool. So, that was a lot.
On my toes.
Right on. Yeah, it's putting you on the spot, and you did beautifully, because it's a lot to pull this stuff out of your head in a hurry. So
yeah.
Totally get it. Right on. Cool. So that is what we've got for you today. I've got a bunch of links in here for you. If you need some help, you need some guidance in figuring out how to even start with working to support a dog that's got so many conditions, go check out Ashley's site, contact her on Messenger, get in touch with her. This is the beautiful thing, is that you can work with a holistic pet health coach remotely on the Zoom call. So it's a matter of, getting a form filled out, getting some basic information sent over, and then the coach can sit down with you and really drill down what's going to be useful and start to help you create a care plan. So
we provide a questionnaire essentially that has a lot of different questions that you're like, why are they asking this? But it really does come into play. Like, does your dog lay on hard surfaces or soft surfaces, cold or warm surfaces? And so there's questions in there that will have reason later. But we also request, certain vet records, so we can look at it from that perspective. And just we want to get like a full picture of your dog or cat, and continue that conversation, but starting with as much information as we can. Right on.
Cool. So that's what we've got for you today. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. One of the other things I want to point out is that we are slowly transitioning even this group over to Circle, which is a completely private platform. The amount of hacking going on out there right now, especially on Facebook, is astronomical. And so when we're discussing things like this, we want to make sure that your information is protected and that people aren't getting into the group that are, putting in yucky stuff that we don't want. So that's what I know. We'll be posting more information about how to join the Circle platform there. And then there'll be a bunch of free resources that are included with it there. So until next time, thanks so much. Ashley, thanks so much for your help with all of these questions, showing off your massive knowledge. And everybody take care. Thanks.